Welcome to Both Sides of Beehives. I'm Beth Arts Ives, and I'm really glad you're here. As a neurodivergent and disabled social worker, I'm always trying to make sense of the world around me and connect the themes that are impacting my clients to my own experiences. Today, we're going to explore narrative therapy. We will discuss the way it impacts my clients, the ways it resonates with me, and how I integrated it into my own wedding vows. I remember when the pandemic hit, we had just moved into our first home together, and I was starting my career as a therapist, and everyone was very scared. There was a lot of unknowns and unpredictability. I was using a therapy called DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy, and I coined it the COVID theory because it was all about accepting and tolerating and making do in situations that are outside of our control and not something that we asked for or wanted. I remember talking to one of my clients at the time who was a doctor and thinking about what would come for the summer, and at that point I was still quite hopeful that my wedding would go off without a hitch, and him telling me I'd start thinking about a backup plan because your wedding is not going to happen the way you think it will come August. And he was certainly right. There was lots of plot twists related to COVID, unrelated to COVID that we encountered. And I'm really lucky that my husband's family, his immediate and extended, rallied behind us and supported us in postponing our big wedding day, as I've called it, but showered us in love and allowed us to still have a really wonderful ceremony on our original wedding day of August 8th, 2020. We eventually had our big wedding celebration with almost all of our family and friends on April 30th, 2022, after postponing it twice. One of our dear friends is a minister, and he was able to be at both of our weddings, which was so special to us. And one of my favorite quotes he made at our April 30th ceremony was, "You are now the most married couple I know." And it cracks up people when we say, ours two weddings, but to the same people. Narrative therapy has taught me to find the through lines and the places where there are meaning that can be made from situations. And I now think that it is interesting and serendipitous that we had two wedding days, since Sam and I had the pleasure of falling in love when we were 17 and having a brief hiatus our first summer of dating, and we have two dating anniversaries, so it just makes sense that we have two wedding anniversaries as well. Certainly not to be conflated with toxic positivity, where we just try and find a silver lining or tell people that they should be happy or positive or optimistic about a situation that is straight up crummy. Instead, narrative therapy says, what meaning do you place on that situation? How do you recognize what happened to you? What situations or scenarios have connected to that experience? And it's a way of creating a story or narrative that feels representative of us. It includes our beliefs and our values and our own language that we put on a situation, not what someone else might have decided for us. As you'll know from my earlier videos and ones to come, I'm a firm believer in letting folks be the expert of their experiences, in understanding how they wrap their heads around the positive or negative, the challenging, the wonderful that has happened to them, and letting them decide how they code it, how they make sense of it, how they tell their story, what feelings and emotions and thoughts come up for them. And I will offer them different phrases or labels or terms that might be helpful for them, that I have found to be useful for other clients or for myself. But at the end of the day, when a client tells me what their experience is, I believe them and I listen. Samuel, when I look down at my hands, I see my past, present, and future, and know that they were destined for you. I see my grandma's wedding band, one that represents 60 years of commitment to one's person, worn by the woman who made me the capable and conscientious person you lead life beside today. She's also the person responsible for all of the mischief I get us up to. I see my Bernan's pinky ring, one that represents elegance and poise, worn by the woman who raised me to believe in the softness of others and to embrace this sensitive heart of mine, one that you've carefully protected all of this time. I see my third time's the charm band, made out of treasured family stones, ones that represent being authentic, once worn by the woman who taught me to be fearless in the pursuit of possibilities and to be fierce in all things that I do. Qualities you don't just tolerate in me, but celebrate in me. I see my engagement ring, a ring we designed together that represents our devotion to each other through thick and thin, pressured-filled times and sparkly times, worn by the woman determined to love you above all else. On my hands, I see specks of paint and plaster, my personal receipts from the work we've done to create the places we call home. I see scars from adventures across Canada and the world, reminders of the incredible memories we have made in our own backyard and beyond. I see scrapes left behind from trials I promised to keep healing from, for the betterment of myself, our relationship, and our future. I see fingers that have been clasped by yours for 8.5 years now, always happiest when held by you. I see palms that have clutched Penny's leash, when sure to hold many other family members as we continue to add to our crew over the next 75 years. I see hands that have held degrees, job offers, love letters, photos, a marriage license, and deeds during our time collecting BAM memorabilia. I see hands that have loved being yours for the last 3,111 days and delighted to be loved by yours for as long as we have. Samuel, I remain committed to the vows I made to you in 2020, to enjoy your company, to be patient, to find joy and gratitude, to support you, and to offer you a marriage full of love and humor and hugs and tears and grace. Today, I commit to you my head, my heart, and my hands, pieces of me that are capable and conscientious, soft and sensitive, fearless and fierce, devoted and determined, plastered and painted, scarred and scraped, clasped and clutched, and destined to be held and loved by you forever. My grandmothers are two of my favorite people on this planet and are the maternal figures that I feel so closely linked to and helped raise me and create the person that I am today. And both of them passed away in 2019 and were not able to physically be at either of our weddings. And so getting to incorporate them into my vows and wear them on my hands is something that makes me feel really connected to their memories and also the best qualities of them that are in me and the parts of their being and relationships that I want to emulate the most in my own. It also felt really important for me to acknowledge and to remind anyone who might have been in our presence that day that love is feeling celebrated and chosen by the person you're with, not just tolerated. And maybe it is the Swiftie in me that really resonated with that idea of we deserve to be among people who are excited to see us, who believe our quirks are our best qualities, who uplift us. And that wasn't always the case for me in different relationships. I often felt like I had to be small or to make myself palatable for others. And the fact that Sam sees all of these pieces of me, my disability, my neurodivergences, and he celebrates them with me when he can and when it is appropriate, and doesn't think that I need to be a different version of myself. And he definitely made that clear, committing to me twice in one lifetime. Sam and I are so lucky that after he finished his program, it was a 5-year program and mine was 4. And so I stayed in our town and worked in our community and applied to my Master's of Social Work. And when he finished his schooling and we had a little bit of time before he started his big boy job and I returned to the classroom, we went on a 7-week backpacking adventure through Europe. And it was nice to get to reflect on that adventure that is 7 years ago this week, which is wild. And we've also had the pleasure of driving from Vancouver to Toronto and covered so much terrain together, and getting to connect it back to that was really important to me. I also think that it's really important that I promised to him in this really public way that I was going to keep working on myself. I am someone that comes with a lot of baggage that I did not ask for. A lot of it is not my fault and not something that I chose to have happen to me, and it is still my burden to carry. It is still my responsibility to heal from. It is still my wounds that I have to be mindful of, and there are still different defaults and reactions in me that I have to be conscientious of. And it was important to me that he knew I'm never going to stop working on those, not because there's pressure or an expectation for me to become perfect. I'm actually trying to become less perfect, but to instead say, I acknowledge that I come with these scars. They are apparent on my hands and always being added to in different ways. And in loving you and in creating this life together, I'm going to keep working at healing them so I can be my best Beth and my best partner and hopefully best parent someday. I laugh at the line of the hands being clasped by yours for the last 8.5 years now, because as I mentioned, Sam read the same wonderful vows that he had written for our first wedding. And even just him writing his own vows was really meaningful to me. It's not something that I think he would have inherently chosen for himself, but he knew how I was really excited to get to write my own vows, and that I'm a words of affirmation person, and getting to hear his own narrative about our relationship and what it had meant to him and what he hoped for our future, that he was able to participate in that and write such lovely words really meant the world to me. And it makes me smile though, because he took his same set of vows and the same piece of paper from our first wedding and had not changed the amount of years we had been together on it. And I saw him doing the mental math in his head, and it's just this really special moment for us during our ceremony where I knew exactly what he was doing, and it was so smooth and no one else caught on. But we had added more time to our relationship and our marriage between our weddings, of course, and it definitely makes me smile to look back on. Penny is our sweet dog who we got during the pandemic between both of our weddings, and she was our pseudo flower girl. I'm really lucky to have an incredible mother-in-law who is also very skillful with a sewing machine, and she is the one that brings so many of my ideas to life. And I had this idea to use the leftover fabric from my wedding dress to make a dress for Penny, and it turned out so cute. I'll have to add a photo on my Instagram of Penny in her little bridesmaid or flower girl dress. And we did not opt to bring her to the wedding, but one of my best friends, who is a photographer, came over the week before, and I sneakily put on my dress and hid behind a wall, and Sam got in his wedding suit that obviously had served him well and held on to Penny in her little dress. So we got a family photo that my dear friend brought to the wedding for us so she would feel a part of our big day. It's also funny reading the line of adding to our crew over the next 75 years, because we were around 25 at the time, and the idea was that it added up to 100, which is obviously a line and a nod back to Little Miss Almost Missed This, where young Beth promised herself that she would live to be 100 and still get a chance at leading a lovely life and a soft life and a good life and getting to the best part, and that is a callback to that. And with that, I hope it gives you a little taste for our love story and the narrative of BAM, and the ways that we can look for these through lines, these commonalities, these themes that might sprinkle themselves throughout our lifetime, and pick them out and see if they bring us joy or comfort or meaning making. And I'm really happy that I was able to share my vows that I was able to promise to Sam 3 years ago this week, and the ways that I bring narrative into my therapy practice as well as my written work.